guys, Jerry Berg, the Poor Historian here, and I am telling you, Purpleheart Armoury never ceases to amaze me at the level of work that they will put in based on the reviews and input that they get from us, the HEMAists who use their products. And so in no way is that seen more clearly than in the fact that they just released the version 3 for some of their popular basic trainers. And so when I saw these things, I just had to get my hands on them. And lo and behold, I am not disappointed at all. Here we have the version 3 of the Messer basic trainer. So this is really neat because this is their version 2.0. And I had the version 2.0 for quite some time, and I absolutely loved it. And here's why. Because when I first got this, all my reviews usually have like a first impressions thing, but I didn't do that because I already owned this one. But when I first got the version 2, I first thought, what am I supposed to do with this? It's got a huge grip, it's got a huge blade. I'm not sure if it's going to work for my Dusek stuff that I wanted to practice. But after I used it just a little bit, I came to realize that this is a perfect, just like this one is going to be, perfect to have for whatever your scenario would be. If I was teaching longsword and I ran out of a trainer when we were practicing the techniques, look, this has perfect length on the grip to do two-handed stuff. Also, when we were doing saber stuff and we didn't have enough for that, look, it's curved, it's perfect, hold it at the end, perfect saber. So that translates perfectly well to the version 3.0. Now back to what I was saying before, how Purpleheart Armoury changes their products based on the reviews that they get. I specifically wanted to point out the changes between the version 2.0 and the version 3.0. So clearly and most obviously is the color, which is related to the change in material that they had. The version 2.0 is kind of a hard material. It's a little heavy. Kind of reminds me of what you'd see at maybe an ice cream parlor where they would work on the ice cream. Whereas this one, if you look a little closer, it is a much softer plastic. And that was probably one of the biggest complaints about their basic trainers, that the older versions are heavy and solid. And I've sparred with them before, no problem. I've even taken lunges against them. They hurt, don't get me wrong, but nothing bad. Whereas this one is great. It's a soft plastic, and I'm sure that sparring with it is going to be a breeze. In fact, I did spar with it, and I'm going to post the videos throughout this video so you can see it as well. But more specifically, there's a lot of changes with it as well. Now, one thing that I did want to point out, they still kept the very iconic Purpleheart Armoury hand grip. I love it. Their basic trainers all have this kind of paracord design grip, the black and purple rope, and they kept it on here, and I love it. But specifically, they also made a few changes as well. So, in the design, they made the changes in the design. So, firstly, I wanted to point out, when I talked to them about why they upgraded to the version 3, they said that the originals, the version 2s, had an issue with the material snapping right here where the nagel sticks in. I personally have never had that issue, but that's the prime example where they say if they have a review of their product or a way that they can improve it coming from us, they'll do it, which is great. They did it before with the Makuhito basic trainer, and they're doing it again with the Dusek, and I'm sure they've done it a million other times as well. Messer, not Dusek. So, if you look here, where the nagel sticks out of the version 3.0 and where the nagel sticks out of the version 2.0, it's much smaller. The amount of plastic sticking out is much smaller here, making a lot more reinforcement around the blade here to prevent that snapping. Kind of see it from the side as well. Much smaller. You can also see they added a bit of thickness. This has a much more straight and flat crossguard area, where this one angles up a bit, and then also the width of the blade here is a little wider too. So, nonetheless, softer plastic, better for sparring, though they do clarify that these don't flex very well, and they don't. But it hasn't stopped me before. I love this. I really do. Like I said, it's very versatile in that, yes, you can do the Dusek techniques with it, but you can also use it as a backup for when you're doing things like saber or sword and buckler or even longsword because the grip is so long. I had the great pleasure of teaching a Dusek Techniques class, and I gave all of my students a list of the basic trainers that they could get from Purpleheart Armoury that matched the style that we would be using. And I was very lucky that none of my students doubled up. Every one of my students in that class had their own basic trainer. So we had Duseks and Messers and Falchions and Sabers, and oh, it was so cool to see the variety of basic trainers that came out of Purpleheart Armoury for that class. It was great to use it. It was great to fight with it. Couple details about this. You can see in just a little bit of sparring that I've done with it, it does take a few dents to the edges where it clashes with your opponent's sword. Now again, like I said, they clarify that this is not made for sparring but for practice, but I do it anyway. Don't tell them. What I did is I just took a few strokes with a sanding sponge, something you could even get from a dollar store if you look hard enough, and just it came right off, it smoothed the edge right up, and perfect. It's back in fighting condition. The last thing that I love, and I absolutely love about Purpleheart Armoury's basic trainer, I am the poor historian. Coming from a background where I loved swordsmanship and I had zilcho dollars to go on it, these are very, very affordable. Very good for learning these techniques and putting them into use. So, like I said, Purpleheart Armoury does amazing things when it comes to getting feedback from their patrons. And so this is a prime example of it. They also have the version 3.0 of the Dusek as well. So I'm curious to see how far it'll go and how much future products will be upgraded as well. They've done it in the past. They're going to keep doing it. It's one of the reasons why I love Purpleheart Armoury. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.